I made a decision that I'm not going to put the telemetry radio out on one of the wings and the video transmitter on the other wing. I think I am going to put a video transmitter out on one of the wings, but I'm going to put the telemetry back here. Just going to try to be easier on myself. Telemetry here, RC receiver someplace in this area, GPS up front, video transmitter out on the wing. So I'm going to go ahead and glue the two fuselage halves together. While I'm gluing the fuselage halves together, I'm going to glue these two little wooden plywood pieces onto the top hatch. Not real thrilled with this top hatch, and I've seen some solutions on the internet, but I think I'm going to build it as it was supposed to be and then come back later and do some fixes. That might be a mistake, but I make a lot of them in life. I wanted to make an observation before I stuck these two fuselage halves together. Just how thin the area right through here, back to here, and up here is on the front. The surfaces to be glued together. I'd like to see those a little more substantial. Okay, let me go ahead and get these things together before bad things happen. The dirty deed is done. Boy, I say dirty deed because, that was a mess. I had epoxy everywhere. I was a little easy on myself and went with the 30-minute epoxy so I could get all the surfaces covered, and it would give me the maximum amount of time. But near the end, I think I was down near the 25-minute mark, getting the second half covered. The first half got a little cured. It all went well, except for I got epoxy everywhere. I went through 6 or 8 pairs of gloves just trying to keep them clean so I didn't get epoxy all over the outside of the fuselage. I got epoxy all over my cutting mat. I had to quickly, after I finished, grab some isopropyl alcohol and a rag and just dissolve the epoxy off the cutting mat before it cured. But everything went pretty good. Now that the two halves are together, that decision is behind me. We'll have to see after it cures and sets up how well my motor mount and stuff set up back here. Got some excess epoxy on the outside that I'll have to deal with later too. Sometimes you just have to put things together and try to deal with the problems afterwards. We'll see what develops here. I won't be able to take my leads, big ones for the battery, past the edges of this equipment bay like I wanted because of that piece of foam is so close. These equipment bay seats down inside the foam that I didn't really account for, and so my gap on my side I had is eaten up by that, plus that carbon fiber rod down through there means I'm not going to move stuff aside much. My little telemetry radio, I moved it towards the center. Just not sure how all that's going to work out, but you know, one of my first builds. I'll get better. So we'll give that epoxy a few hours to cure, maybe overnight, not sure. Then we'll take the blue painter's tape off, hope that it isn't epoxy down to the green cutting mat where it sits right now. But then we'll no. Anyway, there's the top hatch. I did epoxy the plywood hatch fasteners on. Then I'll have to put the bottom part of that. I have to glue that up inside the fuselage in these two areas after the fuselage dries, and then that'll be that. So I don't know if this will dry today or if it'll be tomorrow. My wife's going out of town tomorrow, so we've been the past couple of days really been doing some things to get her ready to go home to see her mother for a while. All right. I'll have more as it cures. Well, it has cured pretty well. It's been about 2-3 hours now. It's still just a bit tacky, not very much. I'm going to let it sit for a while longer, but pretty soon I'll be able to do a few more things to it. Again, each step now is a step back. What do I do next and how do I do it? But that's a major portion of the build right there, is that fuselage finished. And it needs to cure overnight completely before I do a lot with it, but we'll see what I figure out. I was just looking at some of these 3D parts, 3D printer parts I printed out for the mini Talon. This is for the back skid. Yeah, I think that's going to work very, very well. What comes with the kit is just a little piece. Let me get that little piece. This is what comes with the kit. Little piece of plywood. And there's a slot right here in the tail section. And this should go in there. Don't want to get it in there and get it epoxied in there accidentally. But we'll stick it in just for a second. Anyway, that's not fully in, but that's what they send with the kit. That's supposed to protect this foam on landings, and everybody says it breaks on the first landing. There's no lateral strength to it this way. Well, pretty good this direction, but anyway, that's what comes with the kit. Rather than this, I went with this 3D printed part. And that's just got a whole lot more area that it's protecting. And I'm just going to epoxy or hot glue that right there on the bottom. And I think that is really, really cool. I like that as a change, a solution to that little skid problem. It even looks good to me, better than just that wood sticking down. I think it's going to protect it much more and more, much longer. Anything happens to it, I can print another one. Also on the front, I did not put in the wheel. There's a little wheel. There's an axle for it too in the kit. The little wheel goes in there. The wheel is kind of foam, not even rubber. Again, this is another weakness that people say just doesn't work. Rather than make mistakes myself. Now, this would go right in here, And of course you can see how it goes up in the foam. It's put up in here when it's being assembled, but I didn't put that in because I'm not going to use the wheel on the front. I printed out this skid on the 3D printer, and this skid is going to hug it right here like this along the bottom, like that. Oops, I just popped loose. No, that's the top canopy. So that front skid will be on it like that. And I think that's going to do much better for me than the little wheel. Give me a little front, and then a lot of protection for the foam down through here. And again, I think it looks pretty good itself. Oops, there we go. Hard to get in this camera view. And I can just put it on with a little hot glue so that if it cracks, breaks, whatever, I can just heat it a little bit in a couple of places and pull that skid right back off. Put another one I've printed on it. So those two skids, I think, are going to work out quite well. And especially the back one in lieu of this little piece, and the front one in lieu of this little not very functional wheel. So again, just wait for all this epoxy to cure. Yep, the skids in lieu of the front wheel, and the back skid is going to work just great, in my opinion. And I think it looks good. I think it actually looks better. Lets the plane sit more normal than that big old piece of plywood sticking down in the back. So I'm going to go with that. Looking around for what I should do next. Okay, I'm just playing around now. I need to stop that and just let the epoxy cure. I'm just a little impatient at this point. I'm going to go ahead and start on the electronics. I'm going to do a lot of the 765 setup outside of the fuselage, but I'm about ready to start installing the electronics. That's all I'm going to do today. I need to go help Pam get ready to go home to see her mother for 4 or 5 days. Plus, I'm just kind of spinning my wheels here, getting the two fuselage halves epoxy together is a good milestone for today. I'm just going to leave it at that. I still have some Crossfire telemetry things, some ideas some of the guys gave me yesterday to go over tonight after dinner. But as far as the mini Talon is concerned, I think I'm just going to leave it sitting right there and let the epoxy cure until tomorrow.